What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, hit that subscribe button. It's right down there. It's free. That enables us to keep coming to you guys as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. So please hit that subscribe button, like our content, share it, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one. And we appreciate you guys' support and getting us this far. Now, today we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by Mr. Tragedy Khadafi, aka Intelligent Hoodlum, aka Percy, aka so many things. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We glad to be here. What's good with you?
Man, everything is good. It's a long time coming. Shout out to MJ for hooking this up for us.
Yeah, shout out to Walesia, MJ,
Yeah.
aka North Science, aka the Big Queen on deck.
Yes, always looking out. Always looking out.
So
So
she good people.
yeah, so Tragedy Khadafi's got the new song with the Frontline Generals with Raz Ceylon. So I wanted to get you've worked with him extensively over the years, and Frontline
Yeah,
General.
we worked extensively over the years. Knew him for a while. And we've done a few things together, like the Full Metal Gear, Full Metal Jacket project. And just various other joints, man. We've been working like here and there sporadically, banging out singles, banging out work. We had some videos we did a few years back that we kind of kept tucked away. And now we're about to start working on some new visuals and keep it moving. You know what I mean? Just keep the culture going.
Right. So what makes you guys work so well together, do you think?
I think it's both of our commitment and passion to like hip hop culture, one, and to like, you know, the struggle of our people and the advancement of our people, and just like raising the overall consciousness of people. You know, a lot of people think, you know, because you're militant or somewhat conscious, you have to be walking around with beads on your neck and, you know what I'm saying, dashikis and all that. But that's not what it's about. It's not about necessarily looking apart, but it's about keeping a certain mind state and keeping a certain awareness. And I think we both come together on that sharing of awareness through our music. I've always been doing that. And you know, he's doing that. So we just kind of like work together in keeping that awareness up, keeping that consciousness up, which is very important, especially in these day and times.
Yeah, because on Frontline Generals in particular, you talk about how unfortunately some Black people hate other Black people and stuff, and that dynamic that's been going on for a long time. And that's something you've talked about throughout your career from Intelligent Hoodlum all the way up till today. So why is that something that you also, in addition to being militant, do make a point to address from time to time?
Because it's in fact militancy that keeps me aware of that, because that's a sickness amongst all people. Any division amongst your own, so to speak, is a dis-ease, and you got to wonder where that comes from. You got to wonder where the origins of that come from. It's just like, you know, the Irish and the Scottish, or the Scottish and the British. You know what I'm saying? They're one people in essence, separated by land masses and water, but yet divided by what? By a certain idealistic or theory of supremacy that keeps them separated and away from the true enemy. And the same thing amongst people of color, or so-called people of hue, or original people, where, you know, they are divided, not necessarily by their own, you know what I'm saying, thought process, not necessarily by their own concept, but divided by another stem or thought of supremacy to keep them from looking at the true enemy. So it's nothing new. It's just more detrimental, I believe, now amongst original people, because we're kind of far behind in the advancement of humanity, I should say. You know what I'm saying? If we're still, you know, if we're still fighting over territory, we're still fighting over colors and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Or ideals of colors and whatever that means to them. You know, that to me is a great indication that we are far behind the intelligence, or, you know, the right thinking of, you know, advancement and making progress as a people collectively. When you make progress as a people, you're making progress within humanity. You know what I'm saying? And again, I constantly touch on that because I feel like we can't afford to be that way in any aspect. You know what I'm saying? The dollar stays in our community, even though the dollar has no real value in essence, but the dollar stays in our community for no more than 3 hours. Where if you have other communities, the dollar stays in their community at least 12 days. So that goes to show you the unity or the strength of unity with amongst my people. So I gotta constantly touch on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's something, to your credit, you've done throughout your career. And, even taking it back to the 80s and looking at it till today, intelligence, thought, different things has always been a hallmark of your work. And I wanted to get from you, even as a teenager coming up, why was thought, intelligence, reading, why was all this stuff so important to you, even as a teenager when you were getting in the game?
I think because mainly one, I had a spark of interest naturally. Innately, I had a spark of interest. I always wanted to know why, the who, what, when, why, how type of shit. So that was always embedded. That was always within me innately, like I said. Then, I had a mother who would just like make me sit at the table and study the dictionary. You know what I mean? Like I hated it at the time, but then later on, I realized how much of a value it was to basically have some type of control or mastery over, the English language. Another thing too is that, I went away at a very young age, and prior to going away, I had my own concept of not even my own concept, let's be honest, keep it all the way Greenberry. I had a concept of the world that was just not true. So when I went away on my little vacation, I met some people who just put me on a certain information and helped me to see that the world was much bigger than I thought it was. And there were a lot more gray areas that I even imagined it would be. You know what I'm saying? I grew up thinking the world was just black. Then I grew up thinking it was black and white. Then I realized and learned that there's a lot of gray area. And with that being said, when you grow up thinking that, the average black dude is might be a fucking janitor, or, what I'm saying, a drug dealer, or, which is sad, a fucking a killer, a pimp, or whatever, and you come to realize, that there are a lot more contributions that your people made to the world and to society. You start to question your sources of information. You start to question your sources of education. Once you start doing that and you start delving more into it and realizing, again, there's a lot more than you've been taught, you kind of want to spread that word. You know what I'm saying? You kind of want to get that information out there, And to me, I wanted to be like how YouTube is now. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to spread that information at a rapid speed and get in touch kids like me who thought, one dimensional in terms of life. So that's always been kind of like a course within my journey in music as well as in life, period. I was on the phone the other day with a brother that I was incarcerated with when I was 16. And he said, and I didn't even remember this. He was like, yo, me and you had a conversation when we were kids in the adolescent ward that changed my life. And he said he was robbing somebody while in jail, and I was across on the other bunk. And I kind of went over to him and was like, yo, that's all you could do? That's all you know how to do? It's like, yo, you can do more than that, man. And he said that conversation always stayed with him, and that he didn't react to it immediately, but over the course of time, he said that conversation kept resonating in his mind and coming back to him, and he kept revisiting that until, he got into, becoming, a writer. You know what I mean? And he went on to become a writer. And I don't take credit for that, but what I would like to think is that spark of conversation initiated that. And that's why I keep doing what I'm doing. And that's another reason why, I try to stay immersed in information to keep passing it out there. Did I answer your question?
Yes. But this leads me to like 4 other questions. So
let's go, baby.
Taking it back though, speaking of unity and progress as humans, I think, like you have an innate thirst for knowledge, I think we also have an innate understanding of what's right as people, regardless of who we are, where we come from, what we do, whether we're rich, poor, black, white, Asian, Hispanic.
That's right.
So my question to you then is, why is it so hard for humans of any background to push humanity forward, to do the right thing, to be righteous? Why is that so difficult?
Let's look at it this way. It's all about gravitational pull. It's all about energies. It's all about polarities and energies in that essence, at least how I see it in my perspective. I mean, for the past century, we've been stuck on fossil fuels. You know what I mean? Why within that particular area are we so stagnated as human beings? But yet, you know, we're constantly outside of that coming up with new and innovative technology. Those particular means are that way and stuck that way for a reason.
But I would say though, the reality is the technology is there. We are choosing not to use it. It's not that we haven't come up with it.
Hold on, wait a second. You didn't allow me to continue. And I agree with you. The technology has been there. The technology has been there before Tesla, right?
Long time.
But it was even more further explained and elaborated and shared in some degrees during Tesla's you know, existence, but yet set back again because it's that way for a reason. People are finding it hard to unify and come together as a people for a reason. The same way we still stuck on fossil fuels, because for the same reason I explained earlier in the interview, because there's an agenda for that, and these agendas do not benefit a specific party. It doesn't benefit a specific party. Now you can get into the whole elitist thing, the 1% thing, you know what I mean? But I just kind of sum it up to wicked people with an agenda against human progression as human beings. Like you said, why for any people, white, black? Because just as much as ignorance is at fault within, or just as much as that ignorance is detrimental to the black community, it's on the opposite side of the spectrum. Within the same spectrum, it's equally detrimental to other peoples outside of so-called quote unquote black communities.
I agree.
For instance, yeah, because I mean, yo, bro, love is the highest manifestation, man. That's what I come to realize. Love is the highest manifestation and the greatest power. Forgiveness and love. And it sounds crazy, but it's really not. And it sounds so simple, and it's really not.
So that being said, what happened to you? You said you were looking at the world one way, and then you realized you need to look at what happened to you. Like what?
What happened to me is what happens when you travel. When you're confined and stuck within the same place, more so mentally than physically, you become confined, your thoughts become confined. And like they say, you got to think outside the box. My thing is you either think outside of the block or die in it. You know what I'm saying? And that goes for the same thing. We associate, you know, black blocks, hoods, whatever, but equally so, anyone else outside of the so-called culture of black people or race of black people who thinks within the confines of their own ignorance is subject to the same confinement, same type of thoughts, which are what? Detrimental. There's no growth. There's no progression. You know, for instance, me being pro-black doesn't mean I'm anti-white. See, there's gray areas that form a balance. If you love yourself, let's say you're Dominican, whatever, you're pro-Dominican. That doesn't mean you have to be anti-black. It just means you love yourself and or your kind. And if you do that in a healthy way, you can have love and or a respect for my kind as well. You can't love me without loving yourself. But when it becomes an unhealthy thing, when it becomes a thing based on supremacy or you being better than somebody, that makes it different. Now, also, too, it comes into understanding cultures. You know, for instance, you know, you may go to an Asian culture where they, you know, they may bow their heads in greed. Now, another culture may take that as a form of submission, and which is it would be totally opposite of what the Japanese or Asian culture may be, and you know, take that as a form of disrespect. You know what I'm saying? But therefore, if you have an understanding of cultures, you can say, okay, well, I can put my defenses to the side, knowing what this means to this particular people or culture, and do that to what? Form a commonality and have a respect and or bridge, Queensbridge out there, and or bridge, you know what I'm saying? And get along better and help immerse the worlds and build a better world within us, which is what? Understanding. That's the best part. That's just my perspective.
Well, I think that's why we're speaking today. So I think it works. When it's done, it actually works.
No doubt.
Which So much of this ties into all these questions I've had for you about your career my whole life, starting with Percy Tragedy on In Control Volume 1. Why were you labeled that way? Why didn't you have picked a name at that point?
Because I had no control. I had no hearsay. I had no say so in that. I was locked away. I was a juvenile locked away. And there was no communication between me and Marley at that time. Marley's wife wrote me, but he didn't write me, and there was no communication. I mean, I wrote him, but I really didn't get answered back. I assume, he's busy dealing with records, making albums and shit like that. But his wife wrote me and kept in contact with me, Eunice, bless her heart. You know what I mean? She let me know that I wasn't forgotten, but there was no communication. So basically, some people called me Percy, some people called me Tragedy. So when it came to labeling me and giving me a title, a name, he just threw that on there, you know what I'm saying? Which I'm not mad at, because it kept me in existence while I was away with Live Motivator and The Rebel Is Here, which were the only 2 solo records on the In Control album. Now, had I been home for the Symphony, I would have tore that shit up. I lived for that moment. I lived for the moment to rhyme in between G-Rap and Kane and just take a head.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, that's why I try to teach people, especially the youngest today, like I was taught, and it took me a long time to understand, showing up. You got to show up. My circumstances were a lot different. It wasn't that I was just trying to be out there and commit crime and such. Sometimes you do things for a cause, and sometimes you do things because. It wasn't because. I had brothers and sisters I had to feed. I didn't have functional parents. And, it's kind of hard to look at your 2-year-old sister and just be like, all right, I'm not going to go steal so you can eat. You know what I mean? You're defenseless without me. You're vulnerable without me. I'm, 13, 14 years old. I got to go make it happen. You know what I'm saying? So I was taking out the equation because of desperate times and measures. But even now, as a grown man, I try to talk to the youth and let them know, young and listen, man, hold fast. Sometimes you got to hold fast. Sometimes your stomach going to have to growl, but stay in the game. Stay in the equation, because your life could be summed up. Your greatness and your peril or demise could be summed up in one moment.
Yeah.
And that's real shit.
Yeah, because even on The Rebel, you talk about being a hoodlum and a genius. So how, you were very young when you were writing this. What made you already understand that dichotomy about yourself?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not gonna make up an answer, man. I'm not gonna lie to myself. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to the public. I don't know. That was just something that was in my heart. I don't know how it was there. I don't know how I saw that in that particular way, but I just did, I felt like I was smarter then than I am now, though.
Why do you say that?
I don't know, man. It's just I was a weird kid, man. Like, weird kid. I think now I kind of caught up to the time, or the time kind of caught up to me. But back then, like, I felt like I was just in another world, especially for my age. Like, kids my age, like, they didn't even understand me. Like, I was just like a weirdo to them. Only time they understood me is when I was in the streets doing street activity. Outside of that, my conversation, my thoughts, they didn't really understand my thoughts.
Well, to that point on The Rebel, you mentioned like Pegasus. I was like, when I heard that as a little kid when it came out, I was like, man, that's a intriguing reference for as I'm learning about what Queensbridge was and is. I was like, man, that's a very intriguing reference.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to know your question.
Well, my question is, it's one thing for the people around you to think you're weird or strange or whatever, but then to include like a Pegasus reference in your rap, I just was like, that's very intriguing to me. So how did you take this difference from yourself, but still feel confident enough to put it in your rhymes?
One, because for me, rhyming is like, and it's still the same way, maybe even more now than then. Rhyming is a therapy for me. So everything I take in, my thoughts, my perceptions, my just everything I take in, it rhymes to me in my mind. It's already a rhyme as soon as I look at it. So, and this is, again, this is a kid and, flowing like the Pegasus, you know what I mean? Like, I would watch movies and read books, And, you know, they would talk about how the Pegasus soared through the air. So to me, it's like, all right, what's iller than a flow that's soaring through the air like a Pegasus? Nothing's iller than that to me. And in my mind, I wanted to say the illest stuff. I wanted to paint a picture. I wanted to depict a scene or scenes. And to me, like, the beat was like my canvas and my words was like the colors. So to me, the Pegasus was just like the flyest shit. You know what I mean? Because it actually flew and because it was just outside of the hood. And always at the core of tragedy was this hunger and this ambition to want to get out of that block I didn't want to die in.
Be sure to check out The History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It would be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV Raps with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
There's always gonna be shit happening in the street. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.